why you need a reverse mortgage, or at least consider one in retirement. I just sent an email to my subscribers on my website, and I posted on a blog post on the website as well. Same thing. It's just I repurposed the emails I sent to folks, and I put it on my blog on heritagewealthplanning.com about the need for a reverse mortgage, or at least to consider one in retirement. So I'm running these numbers on TSP, the G fund and the C fund. Actually, real quick, I do want to get, a lot of people have been saying you can't take specific from each fund. I think you can now with the Modernization Act. I got to double check. I did a blog post on that 7-8 months ago after, maybe more than that now, when Trump signed the TSP Modernization Act of 2017. If memory serves, I think you can I think it's October of this year, where you can discern, is that the right word? You can pick and choose which funds you want from to come. So I think that can be done nowadays. Don't quote me on that, but I'm almost positive as I can. The TSP Modernization Act, it didn't do anything for beneficiaries, the BPAs and whatnot, non-spouse beneficiaries. It didn't do anything in that regard. But in terms of you as the holder of the TSP, it absolutely, I think, allowed for that kind of, you can make the choice of from which fund for it to come. So you can go back and forth between the C, the F if you want, the G, the I and the S, and even life cycle funds. All right, but I just want to reiterate what we found, or what I found, was running these numbers. So I said, okay, the first and foremost thing, anytime you're doing back testing, you've got to see if you can survive the lost decade of 2000. If you can survive that, you're in pretty good place, without question. So all the back testing I did, and I'm trying to go beyond the 4% amount here. And so what I did is I said, okay, I did 6%, I did 5%, I did 5.5%, I did 2 years cash, I did 3 years cash, I did 4 years cash. What could we do to survive the lost decade of 2000? And the best one was 4 years cash in the G fund, and I use the G fund and cash synonymously because the G fund is 10-year Treasury bond, essentially. So I'm basically it's equivalent to a cash account, in which is liquid. It's not a whole lot of downside risk. In fact, the G fund has none. So I use the G fund as like a stable value fund as a proxy, if that makes sense. And then the C fund is just the S&P 500. So the G fund is essentially a stable value fund. The C fund is the S&P 500. Literally, the C fund is the S&P 500. That's literally what it is. The G fund is almost literally 10-year Treasury. So I mean, you can't. To use that as a proxy is fine for 10-year Treasury. All right. So what I found is taking 5% a year from 2000 until end of 2018, plus having 4 years of cash in the G fund. That was the way to go. All right. I mean, so you basically say, I'm going to park 4 years of cash in the G fund. I'm not going to touch the C fund in the first 3 years of the decade, of the century, really, because the C fund was down 9, 11, well, actually 12 and 22% respectively. But the problem with that, even at the end of 2018, you only had about enough money to cover for another year, and then you're done. So you're going to survive roughly 20 years, and that's it. You survived up till today, but that you're still dead to rights. There's no other way around that. So if you started this at 65 years old, and now you're 85 years old, you're in a world of hurt. And that was the best you can do. Now, I haven't done the 4% because that's not my goal. My goal isn't to prove Bill Bang is 4%. I don't want to do that. I want to say I think we can get more. And I just got to say, too, look, I love Bill Bang. I think he did a freaking insanely good thing. I just love it. I just think, again, the drawback about the 4% rule, and any rule that uses, even the ones I'm using, is it assumes that people's spending will increase each and every year with inflation. I literally don't believe that. But I think it's a sound policy to at least assume that initially, and then work, just kind of backfill that with some other strategies, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say, can we make it better than the 4% rule with 5, 6, 5.5 or something like that, but using the same premise of spending increases each and every year with inflation? And if we can, that's wonderful. If we can't, well, what are we going to do? All right, so then we were able to survive for 20 years, actually 19 years, but it'll die this year with a 5% and 4 years in cash in the G fund. But that's okay. What if we look back in 1973 and 1974? I'm going to physical therapy, by the way, in case you're wondering where your old buddy Josh is going. I don't have my splint. I wonder if I'm going to get in trouble. I haven't really worn it much lately. I mean, it's been, 5 weeks. So, I wear it on occasion when I go to bed, but I'm not wearing it now. And hopefully they don't yell at me there. Old Rachel going to yell, say, "Oh, you need your splint." But anyway, so, all right, going back to the 5%, the method here. So what happens is when we back test this back to 73 and 74, it just gets blown up. And all of these things get blown up. I haven't looked at the 4%. I just don't know because I'm not trying to, again, validate Bill Bengen. I'm completely convinced in his stuff, so I'm not trying to do that. The Trinity study, not trying to do that. But I am convinced, I want to see if we can exploit that, make it even better. And the answer is you can't. I hate to say you can't. In the traditional financial planning realm, you can't. The 5% gets blown up because of the inflation in the beginning of the 73 and 74, where the markets got crushed. So the issue is not only did the markets get crushed, it might look from a 30,000 feet viewpoint that the markets did poorly, but not nearly as badly as, like, say, October 2007 and March of 2009. When you factor inflation, it's just as devastating. We're talking 50% declines when inflation is factored in as well. It's painful. It's painful to watch how bad that was. And then even if you're able to recover for the remaining of the decade up until the mid 80s, the inflation was eating you alive. And then you still got tax. We're not even talking taxes. You throw taxes in the mix. It's just bad. All right. So anyway, the issue is here. There's no getting around it. When you throw in taxes, and never mind investment fees, the whole thing. All of these things suffer. But the problem is these are not anomalies because they happen enough that it's not a black swan or a fat tail risk. But if you retire in 1988, and I showed you could take 6% a year off and freaking still have over $1 million by now. That's the difference between retiring in 2000 in down markets and retiring in up markets. You retire in 1988, you're the golden child. And see, that's the issue. It's like, all right, so if you retire into a bad market, you got to live like a pauper, eating ramen noodles and cat food. If you retire in a good market, you're freaking Eddie Murphy. Remember that? Wasn't that The Golden Child? When he and Arsenio Hall, that movie, Coming to America? Oh, that was funny. That was a great movie. Eddie Murphy, man, that guy's just, you ever see that Raw? Oh no, Josh, there you go with your ADD. You're rambling. That movie Raw was, man, I will never forget watching that. I think it's 88. And that was like, man, that was just, so funny. It was when he did his live comedy sketch, Eddie Murphy. Oh my goodness. All right, so going back to the non-rambling. All right, so if you retire in 88, 89, 90, you're freaking golden. If you retire in 2000, 2008, you retire in 73, 74. That's the issue here is that, some people have to spend limits and some people get to spend a lot, do nothing more than risk. And their luck, I should say, on the year they retire. And that's not good financial planning. That's not financial planning. And the funny thing is all these science guys and math guys who want to say the science of financial planning, the science of retirement planning, there's no science. That's not scientific. That's just luck. And luck is inherently unscientific. It's just that simple. Well, you can create the probability to be more successful. No, you can't, because the probabilities are based on yesterday's numbers, and yesterday's numbers are not going to be tomorrow's numbers. This is my whole issue with the science of the evidence-based retirement planning. There's no evidence of these past things happening in the future. No, we have no clue. No, none whatsoever. There's no science based on luck. Well, the probability, it's still luck. You can say all day long the science of you going to the crap table is this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, it's still luck. Some people are going to win. Some people are going to lose. Not based on science, based on pure luck. It's always funny, too. What was it? If you can go to if you double down every time you have a losing hand in poker, at some point you'll get rich. Well, because at some point you're going to win based on math and science. The problem is kind of like somebody said, the market can stay, I don't know if it's Keynes or Buffett, somebody said the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. And the same thing in poker players do. Yes, that would make sense scientifically and mathematically. If you can double down every time you got a losing hand, you will come out ahead. But the facts are, you don't know when you're going to come out ahead, and you don't have an unlimited amount of resources in which to stay in the game. Your resources are scarce, i.e. they're finite, right? And so because they're finite, at some point you're going to run out of money before the odds turn in your favor. And so the idea that we can rationalize this with scientific theory and mathematics is just silly. You're going to run out of money before the science allows itself to kick in. That's all there is to it. So what we need to do then is eliminate that one issue that comes to mind for planning, which is the sequence of returns risk, and factor that in with inflation. It can't just be downside markets. It's got to be downside markets with inflation, and then downside markets with inflation and taxes. So you factor all three of these things in here, and now we can change. We can't change the future because we just don't know what's going to be, but we can change the ability for you to have a pretty cohesive, coherent retirement plan right out of the gate that allows you to spend more money than the traditional retirement planning would at 4% or 4.4%, which I think is what the Trinity study said. Because those, again, show you if you're just bad luck, you can at least spend 4.4. But the counter to that is more people had good luck than bad, so why should those guys be sitting on only 4.4% where they're flying like, they're going to fly coach while their kids fly first class? We don't want that to happen either. So anyway, this is where reverse mortgage plays a big deal. And like my man Sergio said, if you had a $300,000 home that's paid off, you could generate $8,500 a year. I think you had to be 65, 66 years old, I think, for the entirety of your life, essentially for 30 years. Let's just say that, tax-free. How you should not, that's an 8.5. So let's say you had a $100,000 portfolio and you want to live on 6% a year. Well, I just proved to you that if you look historically, you're going to run out of money if you retire in a couple bad years. And it's not just a couple, it's a bunch. There's an abundant amount of times where that decade would have eaten you alive. A decade would have eaten you alive. You just can't have that. So we can say, well, what if instead we use a reverse mortgage? We can take not only 6%, not only 7%, not only 8%, but 8.5%. And on top of that, allow our portfolio to just sit there and go without having to tap into it. That has a lot of benefit there for sure. So we're increasing the amount that we can take out, decreasing the risk, decreasing the taxes. And I just, not to consider that because of the fees. And we'll use, so what I'm going to start doing, what I've been playing around this morning, and I had to pause so I can go to physical therapy with old Rachel. Josh, make sure you're doing the exercises. Actually, Rachel doesn't talk like that. I like Rachel, but still it's like, hey, I haven't been there in a week and a half. I'm like, oh man, I don't like going to physical therapy. It hurts, and it's a pain in the butt, no other way around that. But you gotta go. You gotta do your physical therapy. Really? Do I really need to do this? Anyway, so I forgot what I was saying. The issue is here, so I'm playing with some numbers, and I'm not ready to present these yet because this will literally be part of the book that I'm working on now. I find it to be just incredibly informative, man, incredibly illuminating, and just relaxing. Because look, I do this for me. Your old buddy Josh is 49. At some point, I'm going to have to retire or have an income stream that I can't outlive. And I don't want to be a pauper at 4% a year because I retired to a bad year. And I don't know what those years are going to be. That's the issue. And what if it's like using Wade Fowle and David Blanchett? What if it's 3.2 because of the current bond rates? I don't want to do that stuff. I want to live better than that on the front end of my retirement. I don't want to live on 3.2 or 2.7 if I'm in a 40-60 portfolio, whatever the hell it is. I don't want that. And so not to use the equity in your home, it doesn't make sense to me, especially when there's low bond yields that we have. So I'm going to incorporate a reverse mortgage. I want to see how it works. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to suggest that you look into it too. But Josh, you got to pay $10,000. So on a $300,000 home, you're going to pay $10,000 in closing costs. That includes a $1.5 or $1,500 origination fee. $10,000. All right, $10,000. Whoop-de-doo for the ability to tap into $8,500 tax-free a year and not touch my portfolio. I just the issue with the closing cost thing, I don't get it, man. But look, I don't get it, but I do get it. People are like, I don't want to pay that kind of fee. I'm like, so we're gonna run all these numbers, and it'll be fun. So this is the premise on my book, and then again, I'm gonna go back using the Wellington. So I'm gonna go back to using Wellington without the reverse mortgage and going back historically, and then I'm gonna go back to using Wellington with the reverse mortgage, and then we're gonna throw in taxes there as well. And it's I just know where this is gonna be. I think I do. So anyway, stay tuned. All right, we'll see you. And don't forget to smash the like button, as my man Graham Stevens says. Stefan, smash the like button. Yeah, I'm pretty excitable this morning, folks. It's morning. My wife is back from England. It's a good day for old Josh, other than Rachel and physical therapy. All right, we'll see you.